Try to put a little step up in this place.
Okay, well, if we're okay with doing that, I think we can prepare an amendment between now and the council meeting tonight. Okay, thank you. Have the book? Just in case, probably don't need it. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Okay. Okay, hurry. No problem. Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. This time I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the last meeting. I'll make it.
So moved.
You make it. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Very good. I don't believe we have any public hearings today. However, though, we do have a couple items on our agenda. Regular list of legislation. The first of which is the ordinance declaring certain improvements to real property located in the Home Avenue redevelopment area to be a public purpose and exempt from real property taxation, providing for the collection of service payments in lieu of taxes and the deposit of those service payments in the appropriate fund. Basically, that's the definition of a TIF, I believe. And also, we did, I understand, vote on this previously via the zoning, conditional use zoning, I believe we had to deal with. And also we have a development agreement that was previously passed. So this is nothing terribly new for us, but this is, we'd like to hear the explanation.
Yeah, just thank you, Councilman Fusco and members of the committee. Just like Councilman Fusco said, this is tax increment financing legislation, which allows us to apply for tax increment financing through the state of Ohio. The development agreement was passed in July of 2018, authorizing the city to sell the former sewer maintenance building. Building renovations are now complete, and the certificate of occupancy has been granted. Production has begun in the facility. This is the medical marijuana cultivation facility. The tax increment financing will be used to facilitate public improvements along Home Avenue. In the past, some of our the TIF stream has gone to the business. This is not the case with this particular property. We will be getting the full amount of that increase. The process can take up to 18 months for state approval. A little bit of background information. The sale, when we sold this building, it was at the price of $335,000. The company agreed to put $5 million in renovations into the building and to create 5 full-time jobs at completion and another 4 within 12 months.
Very good, thank you. Is there any is there a rush on this one, or can we put on consent, or does it matter?
Consent would be fine.
Okay, we can do that. Okay, very good. Or we could just go ahead and pass it. This came in last week, as everyone is pretty much aware. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Neal?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it in my pad. Which one is this again, please?
This is the first item on our agenda. This is the TIF, and this is the application that's going to go to the state of Ohio. The TIF funds are going for improvements on Home Avenue, and the income stream is coming back into the city. This is the sewer maintenance building over there. That
yeah, see, For some reason, mine doesn't have,
Mine isn't
any
Uh-oh.
legislation with it.
Yeah.
There's no
Mine doesn't
legislation
either.
with it at all.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have it with here.
What's on here?
Can we request hard copies in the event that our internet goes down?
Well, I have internet, but
Yeah, it was
there's
on
no
last
attachment
week's.
to it.
It's on.
Okay, we'll take temporary time. Can someone, suppose I can go back and ask them to give us hard copies? If someone can go back and ask for a whole bunch? We'll just take temporary time on that, short of any other, we'll just take temporary time, revisit it once we get the hard copies. So if you can stick around, please, thank you. Short of any other questions or comments reference to that. I'm gonna go ahead and request time, well, excuse me. Mr. Kamer and I had a discussion about 795 East Wilbeth. Mr. Antonucci?
Well, yeah, this was, we had a public hearing last week on this, and I believe we took time on that. We do have a substitute, or we have an ordinance that was added with some conditions. I do understand that there's a request for another condition that it be tied to that particular property owner.
Yes, possibly, if we can legally do that. Mr. Kamer, the ward person, is in favor of such. Can you briefly go over some of the additional conditions?
Right, the conditions that we have on the ordinance currently is that there be no more than 5 vehicles parked on the property, that the vehicles not be parked in front of the house, the area be kept free of trash and litter, that there's been inspection done by the fire department, because I believe there could be some cleaning materials, that kind of thing in the garage, and that it be in generally complying with all code requirements for residential.
Okay, very good. Ms. Mobian?
Yeah, I was here the morning she presented to the commission. This is actually her home she's used. It was a business that was started by someone, was it her mother, or did she start it?
I believe she started it.
It's been going on for a while though, right?
That's, yeah, about 8
And
years
it's
that we're
her
aware.
home that is used as a hub where her cleaners come to get supplies and stuff and go out.
They go out in their company vehicles essentially, so they come park their private vehicles and then go out in a few company cars.
Now, do they clean residential and commercial or just residential facilities?
I think they'll do both. I
Both?
believe they do.
Yeah, and she's been doing it for how long now?
Oof.
It was
believe at
quite a
least
few years. It
8,
was,
yeah,
yeah.
8 years, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. And it came to our attention because,
We had a complaint from a neighbor.
from the neighbors, because of vehicles or? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes. Sims?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we had some healthy discussion last week. So on this particular piece, is there a reversion clause that it goes back to if they sell the house, or how does that work?
That's exactly what we were talking about in terms of an additional amendment possibly
Okay.
that would be added to this particular updated ordinance, if you will. Whereas it would just travel with the property owner versus the land.
Okay.
We could
so-
place a
Conditional
condition
use.
that would say if the house is sold to a new owner, that the conditional use disappears,
Okay,
basically.
okay, thank you.
We were talking about adding that as an amendment. Yes, I believe so. Yeah, we're going to try to add that before tonight's meeting, possibly. We still may need to take time, because I know the ward council person had wanted a couple other things to take care of first, so we'll see. Okay, Ms. Mobian again?
It sounds like it's a mobile business. It doesn't sound like it's anything that is bound to that property. So if she were to leave, the business, I think, would go with her, because she's pretty much sending cleaners out to facilities to clean.
Right, well, she's using the garage for office space and for storage of equipment.
Right.
So if she were to leave, it shouldn't be.
Yeah,
It doesn't really change the appearance of the house.
Okay, thank you.
Could be marketed, though. Further questions or comments? Good, we'll also take temporary time, I guess, until we have further discussion on this, Mr. Kamer. So, temporary time on that one. And I'm going to request, I guess, time on the balance of the agenda here, short of any questions or comments. We do have new legislation that has come in this afternoon. And the first one, this is authorizing the purchase of 1762 Merriman Road for the Merriman Valley Train Depot project.
Thank you, Chairman, committee members. This will be a purchase of vacant land down in the valley. The city would like to acquire for a future train station depot, a new one. Here for any questions you may have.
Okay, very good, sir. How much?
The proposed price is $200,000. That was negotiated down. There was independent appraisal value in the 300s. They originally had a listing price at about $219,000. We were able to settle on a proposed purchase price of $200,000.
Mr. Hardy?
Just to add to that, we've been working with the Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad and the National Park as part of this project to bring, finally, a train depot to Merriman Valley as part of the Great Streets Initiative. So this money was budgeted in OID in our acquisition line item. It was an opportunity that came about. We looked at it through planning and economic development and felt that it was an ideal site. We checked with both the railroad and the National Park. They agreed. And so this is the first step in this process. We will not be breaking ground on anything in 2020. This is going to take some time. But our ultimate goal is to bring a train stop to the Merriman Valley to service that wonderful corridor and connect everyone that rides the scenic railroad from Cleveland all the way to Akron, give them the opportunity to experience Merriman Valley in the future.
Questions, comments? Ms. Mobian?
Just curious. Excuse me, just curious. As I was reading this last night, I see that you negotiated down from 250. So are we tying up CDBG dollars? I mean, that's where the source is coming from. And I didn't get a chance to drive by the property, but I was really curious as to why it was so costly. That is one question. The other question is, the train, whoever owns that, and the Cuyahoga Valley folks, do we have any partners going into this with us?
Yes. So to answer the first question, I can answer part of the first question. Glenn might be able to talk a little bit more about the market value of the property. In terms of CD, this is part of our CD line item for acquisitions. So we have a line item in the CD budget every year for strategic acquisitions for community development purposes. This we felt was ideal, based again on the Great Streets Initiative, and this has been something that has been sought for a long time by the business and merchants and the residents that live in the Merriman Valley. We are working in concert with the Cuyahoga Valley Scenic Railroad. They own the cars. It's a little bit of a strange ownership model. So they own the cars, but they don't own the track, and that is owned by the National Park. So we needed both of them. We have an MOU in place that outlines the partnership. This is our contribution into the project. We will be working with the Scenic Railroad as they get ready for their capital campaign coming up in about a year. This will be part of it. And then we will also be seeking grants and other sources of funding to actually construct the depot. That's why I said we won't be breaking ground this year. We want to put together the financing, and of course the National Park is woefully underfunded at the national level, but the superintendent is very enthusiastic about the project, and so they are more than willing partners to help us find resources that are out there. And then, Glenn, I don't know if you want to address that.
This is about an acre of property. We feel it's below value. There was an appraisal on this about 4 years ago. They had it listed about $340,000. So we do feel we're getting it at below market value, and we're also getting it below listing value. This is something we felt comfortable with. We did not feel comfortable at appraised value. So we have negotiated it down to something we feel is reasonable.
Okay. If we have a project to come up in 2020 where we need the CDBG dollars, do we just kind of move this to the next year, and use that line item? Or you tie these dollars up, whether you use them in 2020 or not?
Well, we're going to spend them. So we're going to execute the purchase, pay,
In
acquire, yep. And then there will be a new line item, a new bucket of CDBG that comes from the federal government for 2020 that'll replace that line item.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, how is our relationship, do we have anything that's, like the one that's down on Short North? Do we own that land, and someone, who's responsible for maintaining? I'm thinking after this is constructed, looking at the way we do everything else, what is going to be the cost? Do we have a chance to recoup these dollars in some kind of way by leasing this out on some type of long-term lease? How does that work?
So as part of the memorandum of understanding with our partners, we do contemplate that the Scenic Railroad would maintain the structure once it's built, as they do with all the other depots along the rail tracks. We've also had strong interest from the Conservancy for the national park, the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, about looking at Merriman Valley and that depot for a possible retail location for their, forgive me, what's the name of their, trinket shop? God, I can't remember the name, but the Cuyahoga Valley Conservancy has a retail shop, Trail Mix. They're interested. They think it would be a good spot, so there could be some revenue generation there for the city. I think long-term, though, this is really about impacting positively the businesses that are in there, in that district. We have the Weather Vane Theater. We have some incredible restaurants. We also have a lot of merchants down there that all connect up to the Towpath Trail, which happens to run through Merriman Valley as well. But there's never been a stop. And so if you're living in Brecksville and you're interested in going to dinner in a theater, Merriman Valley was never an option for you because there was no place anywhere close to stop. So we're very hopeful that this will open up train or transit-related development and boom for those businesses to have people coming on and off the train, not just for a theater and a movie or theater and a dinner, but also the hop-on, hop-off program they have for trail riders who have a bicycle right there. We're working, and Planning Director Segedy can talk a little bit more about this, to create a safer environment across the street there at Merriman so that folks can get from the trail to the depot. It's on different sides of the street there at Weather Vane Lane. So while there's not a hard and fast revenue opportunity for the city, we have contemplated the long-term maintenance to minimize the impact to the city. We have contemplated some opportunities to potentially get some revenue from the depot, but ultimately this is a pure community development project to try and assist that corridor to open itself up to another group of people that wouldn't otherwise be able to get there.
And I would just add, when you look strategically at the whole corridor and at the size of the city, that if you think about the spacing of stations along the Cuyahoga Valley Scenic all the way up to Independence, there's actually a pretty big gap between Northside and Boatsum, which is their first station. And given the population of Akron and the amount of people that this would serve, we really felt like it was important to have, another station here in the city of Akron.
And one other thing just to add, we did look at whether or not there were delinquent properties that we could leverage the land bank for. There just aren't. And in that corridor, we're doing a delinquent strategy with the land bank for the Copley Road grade streets and the work that we want to do there, strategic acquisitions there, but it just didn't work for Merriman Valley. There weren't any properties that made any sense that were tax delinquent enough that the land bank could acquire them. So it was either wait until the district got to a point where there were a bunch of delinquencies, which nobody wants to do, or this particular parcel came up, and as Glenn said, we thought we could get it for more than fair value.
This, having ridden yesterday with Santa Claus on the train, it's a long stretch of, not stopping, and activating, seeing the long game on this. It's almost as if you want to be dropped off in an area that is active, where there's things going on, where there's activity, I guess, for lack of a better term, just like in Peninsula, I guess, with the winking lizard and this and that, and it's a whole thing over there. So I know, did you have something you'd like to say? Yes. Marilyn Keith, co-sponsor of this, would like,
Talk to my colleagues, because I want you to know we've been working on this for about 4 years. And the problem was that the businesses were not joined at all. They were, many would just be there for a while. They have finally joined these last 2 years and worked hard. And I have to compliment them, because the many meetings that we have had to try to build a vision for down in the valley has always been, what can we do for the good of all of us down here? And so it's not just a pass-through. And as many of you know, that is what it is right now, is pretty much a pass-through. Karen Zampelli, who heads up the businesses, has done a remarkable job. And if you have noted, 2 years ago we took over a piece of property down there, had a number of cleanups. The city helped us with some trees and some mulch. Another thing that we have done is that we have put planters out there to appeal to people, because the first time, Jason and I have sat down there a number of times. Susie Graham's been down there. I've been down there with Kyle. It's just such a pass-through. You don't even recognize that there was a sidewalk that makes it a walkable thing. So what I'm saying is, this is a jewel in our city that really has never been rubbed the correct way. And I am so grateful for all the work that many, many people have done towards this. And I would hope that my colleagues would see the value that it will give to Akron as to move forward on this property. It's exactly where we need it to be. And when you've got a number of businesses, some that struggle and go out because we just don't have the foot traffic or the stopping that we need to have down there. And we now have the national park and the parks and the city coming together to build a vision for this area, and we're finally a great street. So I would hope you see the value in moving forward with this. Thank you.
Ms. Keith, thank you. Thank you for that. Mr. Neal, do you have something?
Oh, no, well, I just want to make one point. I understand the need and everything. I just want to make sure that if there is an opportunity where rents are collected on a plot that the city has secured, that the city benefits from that in whatever way possible. If it's through, looking forward and looking at some of the things we've done in the past, some of the agreements haven't always been to the city's best interest. So if any rents are collected off of this plot, I'd love to see where it's documented, so that if it's years from now and none of us are around, they still understand that the city's supposed to benefit from that.
Excellent point, Councilmember, and we'll make sure we do that.
Thank you. Ms. Samples?
Thank you. Question, the distance between when you get on in Akron at the North Side Station right here, I'm traveling through Merriman Valley. I've been on this train several times with my grandkids. What's the distance between Akron, this tentative Merriman location, to Peninsula?
So from downtown, it'll be a little bit different than a straight line because of how the tracks go, but I think from north side, it would be 4 to 5 miles from north side to here, and then from here to Peninsula, it would be around 7.5, 8 miles. So Peninsula is still a little bit farther up.
So if I miss Akron, I can get on a Merriman. Can I load my bike in Merriman, or just up here at the north side? Can you load, will you be able to load down to Merriman as well?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
And the really cool thing is, I know, and I don't want to spoil Joe Mazur's fun, but I know that the Scenic Railroad has every intention of trying to extend their lines further into Cleveland, thus giving potentially one day the opportunity for us to hop a train in downtown Akron and take it all the way to downtown Cleveland. So I know it's a good time to get on that train, no pun intended.
Right. Sims?
Just a couple of questions. Because the CDBG dollar is so precious, when do we anticipate the project to go forth? I hope it's not a 10-year thing, so we're talking like when?
I think our hope internally is that the train station would be up and running by 2023 at the latest.
By 2023, so we're talking 4 years from now.
Well, 3.
Okay, yeah. So on the, relative to the ridership, I know we did a lot of surveys and we do Great Streets. So how did we kind of garner data about usage when you place, for placement?
Sure. So, and I invite Director Segedy to chime in on the overall usage of the railroad, but if you know. What we try to do or endeavor to do with the Great Streets program is to match data with the aspirations of the district itself. So most of the time, those match up, meaning a district wants to improve overall safety, and so the data shows that there is a safety problem, and we can address that. When it comes to Merriman Valley, as long as I can remember, there has been a wish to have a train depot in the valley. While we have not done specific data collection or surveys of riders on the railroad, for example, to see how many would stop, how many would get off there, how many would get on there, we know based on other stops along the railroad that have connection to the towpath trail, again, that have restaurants and other activities and amenities at the stop like Peninsula, that there is an enormous benefit to those businesses and to the overall area through transit-oriented development. So it's a bit of a risk, although I think it's a very, very safe one from the standpoint of it's already been tried in other parts of the county and along the railroad, and it's worked. We know that it's a huge aspiration, as Councilwoman Keith said, for the district. They really feel like this could be a game changer for them. And we don't disagree. We think that with the connectivity of the towpath trail across the way, with some additional supports to improve the safety, the overall safety of the roadway there, we think that it could be a real boon for the businesses, but you may know more about ridership.
Yeah, I would just add, I think it's a great question about data and looking at how this area, we'll just compare it to Peninsula, because Peninsula, rightly so, is regarded as kind of a key stop on the railroad. You know, Village of Peninsula has only about 500 residents, and primarily when people go, they go to the Winking Lizard. I mean, there are other businesses, but you think about how much traffic on that railroad is generated just by that small village and basically that one key business. And the valley has many other businesses, and you know, Parkway Estates alone, there are over 500 people, I would estimate, living there, plus all the apartments and so forth. So I think the key with this location is the desire to go to or from this area is definitely there, but it's also, and James had alluded to this earlier, doing all the other things from a planning standpoint to set that location up for success and leverage its potential. So making sure you can walk safely to that station, making sure if people want to take their bike aboard or get off with a bike, that there's a kind of a intuitive way to get to the towpath, et cetera. So I think, you know, we're going to work hard in OID as the project develops to physically construct a station to also look at how do we get people to and from that site safely and easily and painlessly.
If I can continue. So I guess my question would be, I know we asked what the overall costs for the project will be and will we have partners. It just seems like that would be important data to know so people know they're making the right investment in a depot at that location. So I guess I'm just interested as to why we don't have that concrete data, or as closely as concrete as we could get, about, you know, we really hate, we can want a lot of things and they may appear good, but I would hate to see that be a dud.
Sure.
And we've invested $200,000 in doing that.
Sure, and that's a point taken. I think, again, we would not be bringing this to you if we did not have the Scenic Railroad and the National Park on board as partners who also think this is a good location. So they really are the experts in terms of where to put a depot. I will say, anyone who's ridden the railroad, it's a darn shame to pick it up in the north side and it takes you directly out of the city. as if there's nothing along the way that's worth stopping for. We've convinced them that there is, and it's Merriman Valley. The other thing is that we wouldn't be able to use CDBG if Merriman Valley wasn't eligible as a low to moderate income area, and it is. And so when we think about use of community development dollars, how we use those interventions, we're trying to use those dollars to intervene in a way that builds wealth into the community, that supports the overall community growth in that area. We really, for all the reasons we've articulated today, feel very strongly that it's more than a hunch. We've checked as much as we could without doing formal surveys and things. We will obviously not move forward with any construction project without bringing it back to council. And again, that's probably a year or so away as we accumulate and search for grants and other things. But when it came down to what could be a good use of CD money in the Merriman Valley, this continually rose to the top, both with the businesses, with the residents, and with our internal staff as to how we could generate additional wealth in that community around the businesses and the residents and really start to drive people to the Merriman Valley again. So we feel confident, but I hear what you're saying and appreciate your concern. I definitely, though, hope I'm conveying a good level of confidence that we wouldn't be bringing this to you if we didn't have partners in place. We're not alone in this.
I just want to say, theoretically, I get it, and you know, in my head, it makes sense, but still, absent that data, it does concern me. Here's my last question. There was $250,000. Is that the request? And why are we requesting $250,000
So
for?
the original, I believe, budgeted amount was $250. We didn't know what the price would be, but it's the purchase price is $200.
So the request is not $250,000. It's $200,000.
It's $200, correct.
So okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swirsky.
Oh, just a brief comment. I guess I should start by thanking the citizens who've been involved in pushing this idea. I know Mrs. Keith has worked with some of them, but, and also your ability to form another collaboration. But this is the kind of thing that captures the imagination of our citizens while it boosts our economy, and I applaud you for your skill and also your tenacity on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, short of whether I'd like to, given the strength of this project, I believe I'd like to request a favorable report with suspension of the rules. Is there a motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more. Approving and confirming the, except for we will have to go back on the item that we took temporary time on. The second item under the new list of legislation is approving and confirming the reappointment of Scott Rowland to the vacant commercial or industrial building appeals board. Mr. Valley, I believe, is here for this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Committee. We are finishing up, believe it or not, year one of the vacant building registration appeals board. And Mr. Scott Rowland, he served in a one-year capacity. He served for many years with the Board of Zoning Appeals, and he has that experience and expertise, and he is the current chairperson. So he's the only member that needs reappointed because he only had the one-year appointment, and I would ask council to please reappoint him.
Thank you, sir. Consent
Because we
agenda.
need him.
I understand. We appreciate his service. Consent agenda, okay?
Consent agenda is perfect, thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Motion for consent.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Ms. Amobian has a question.
Are we appointing him to a one-year term or a 2-year?
He was originally appointed to a one-year term, and I believe 2 members were 2 years. I don't have that legislation in front of me, but we are appointing him
It
right now
looks
to a
like
3-year term.
It looks like based on the data up front, the information, it's a 2-year term, but then at the bottom it says reappoint to a 1-year term on the vacant commercial.
He was previously a 1-year, but he would be appointed through December 31st of 2022, so that would give him a 3-year term.
Well, I think you need to change the bottom, unless I'm misreading this. Part 2 says reappoint Scott Rowland to a one-year term. Should that be 3-year or 2-year or something?
Where is it at? Where is it?
Okay, I think probably what they did is they duplicated the one from a year ago.
I just want to make sure we
Yes,
get it right.
Yes, definitely a
Oh,
three-year term.
that's the
Yeah.
Uniform City Council
Correct.
report?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not, I don't
That's our
believe,
fault.
we have a couple lawyers perhaps in here, but it's only on this. I think the legislation itself does say 2 years. Does it? We can get a substitute over here. Okay. It's fine. And it would just be for the UR.
All I just want to make sure is
AR.
we are doing what we said we're doing at the top.
Okay,
If
very
it's
good.
consistent.
Thank you for pointing that
finding
out.
That's fine.
We don't need to amend it, do we?
Motion to accept whatever.
Consent agenda.
Okay.
Is there-
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, very good. Now we have to go back, and now that everyone should have a copy, I hope, reference item number 1 on our regular list of legislation. Just remind everyone, this is reference the property on Home Avenue, that formerly known as our sewer maintenance building. And this is reference at TIF, tax increment financing. This is the application that's going to the state of Ohio. Takes them about 12 to 18 months typically to approve. And this is to go forward for, in lieu of taxes. That money is going to go toward the improvements to Home Avenue to help support that business. Mm-hmm. Is that it? Good. Questions or comments? And we had this for about a week or so. I just want to give everybody an opportunity to look it all over. So, Ms. Amobian.
And I don't know if it's a question, it's more of a comment. I guess as we do all of these things, we make sure that the school district is whole by whatever agreement we work out with them in terms of delayed. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Mr. Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as in relation to all the projects that we've done tax incentive financing to, if we can get an overview on what type of taxation has been deferred and the impact, overall impact on the community, if we've achieved our goals with those things. A lot of communities are evaluating how they utilize tax incentive financing. And, you know, if it's achieving the goal and if it's, I think that would be helpful for us, especially as we get ready to roll into a new year. It'd be a good time for us to look at the total dollar value of those projects and where we are as far as achieving those goals. Because, I mean, 30 years is a long time. So, thank you.
Very good. Further questions or comments? Very good. I'd like to entertain a motion. We've had this for a week for suspension of the rules of the favorable report.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Very good. I believe that's a wrap. Thank you all. Planning is over.